The main thesis of my book, The Abolition of Aging, is that we have the possibility, if we decide as a society, to develop comprehensive rejuvenation therapies by as early as 2040. So in the next 20 to 25 years, we can have the means to reverse biological aging. There are three kinds of changes that are necessary if we are going to abolish aging. Basically, there's technology, there's a change in mindset, and by the way, there's a change in political will as well. The technologies that will enable the abolition of aging include nanotechnology, that's smaller scale control of what's happening inside the body. There's genetic engineering, and there's 3D printing of new organs and parts of the body, and there is stem cell therapies, which is use of cells to change into different types of cells, rejuvenated. And last but not least, there's artificial intelligence, which is able to scan huge amounts of data and indicate what are the best solutions, what are the best drugs, what are the best treatments for various kinds of issues arising in each and every one of us. So when I say this is a possible future, I don't mean that it is inevitable. I don't mean that it will definitely happen. I say that it's about a 50% chance. And it will only happen if we as a society decide to prioritize it. But if we do that, if we decide that aging is something that should be addressed rather than something we all accept, if we decide that the purpose of living is to live well rather than, as some philosophers say, to prepare to die, then there's a chance that we can achieve this. And there's a chance, very importantly, for these technologies to be available at such a low cost that they will be accessible to each and every one of us. And in order to achieve this low cost, in part we can rely on technological innovations, the same innovations which have driven down the prices of new technologies such as smartphones, flat screen TVs, and other aspects of computerization so remarkably over the last 25 years. But in part it may also take political will to insist that these technologies are available for the common good rather than their benefit just accruing to a few people. There are two parts to the answer of ensuring that the therapies are sufficiently low cost. Recognizing, as you said, that in many parts of the Western world today, lots of therapies are very expensive, becoming more expensive. The first part of the answer is to identify political failure and market failure as the cause of these growing prices. It's not necessary that the prices should rise so high, and with sufficient political will, more of these treatments could be driven down in cost and made more affordable. But more fundamentally, there's a principle called a stitch in time saves nine, to say an old English saying. If we can address problems early enough, then they are much cheaper to address. It's true that most of the healthcare costs arise when people are already quite ill. Most of the healthcare costs apply to old people, people who are experiencing several diseases at the same time, so-called comorbidities. But with the rejuvenation therapies, it'll be like maintaining a machine at a sufficiently early time. It's much less costly to do that. If we spend the money to undo the damage that's accumulating in our body, the damage of aging, then we'll be much less likely to need these expensive therapies if we go worse in healthcare later in our lives. So this will actually be a cheaper solution. People talk about the longevity dividend, which is the notion that if we invest in these rejuvenation therapies, of course it costs money, but the benefits will far outweigh the costs. The benefits will be lots of healthier people who are contributing to society. The benefits will also be on the families of people who were ill, and otherwise family members would have to take time off work to look after their ill relatives. Instead of this, we'll have more and more people remaining in the full flush of health, the full flush of youthfulness and vitality for much, much longer. And that is the beauty of the longevity dividend. So I think many people will come to this situation in their lives. They may look forward to the availability of low-cost comprehensive rejuvenation therapies, but sadly they will become ill and become near to the point of death before that's available. In which case, I advocate people looking very seriously at something called cryonics. That's the low temperature suspension of the body after the body has been declared legally dead. And what's this like? It's like getting into an ambulance. If you have an accident and you're far away from a hospital, we don't say, too bad for you, because you're not in a hospital, you have to die. We say, quickly, get in the ambulance and we'll transport you to a different place where therapies are available. Well, it's the same with cryonics, except that in this case, we're transporting people through time. We're suspending their animation. It'll be like a deep freeze, the same kind of thing that happens, by the way, to embryos after they've been fertilized for in vitro fertilization, test tube babies. Some of these are kept in embryonic condition, deep freeze for many years. If we do the same with human bodies, then they can be transported over the years into a future time in which the therapies will be available to undo the damage of whatever's on the point of killing them. So we can understand in principle how it might work as an extrapolation, as an extension of what we already see. There are some creatures that can survive remarkably low temperatures. Very primitive creatures, it's true, but there's nothing in biology itself which says that there is no possibility for suspension. People may say, some critics will say, well, once there is water in the body and that freezes, when it defrosts, then it's going to cause huge amounts of damage. But cryonics points out that there are ways to remove the water from the body and replace it instead with different liquids. So this is part of the preparation. It's the same as these other animals which I mentioned, some fish, some other creatures which have various kinds of antifreeze properties in their body which allow them to survive far below zero temperatures. So it's an extrapolation of that principle. And why not? There's nothing inherent in biology that means that creatures can't be put into a deep animation and then reawakened at the right time. After all, it's a bit like what happens in general anesthetic. In general anesthetic, it's not like a normal sleep. In normal sleep, the brain's still very active. In general anesthetic, the consciousness switches off much more fundamentally. So I view cryonics as like an extension of general anesthetic and an extension of other fields of medicine which are already possible. So I think overall population is a concern. I'm not worried in the short term because I believe there is plenty of room on this earth for quite a lot more people than we have at present. We're not very equally distributed around the planet. In fact, more than 50% of the world's population lives on just 1% of the land mass. A lot of the rest of the land mass is not yet available or not yet used for population. So I believe we can create wonderful buildings to go higher into space, certainly first of all into skyscrapers, and then higher into space, and there'll be plenty of room on the earth for many more people. In due course, it's true, perhaps in 100 years or 200 years after the population has doubled several times, then we will look to going beyond the earth into space, in space stations and then into new planets. When people talk about overpopulation, what they're really worried about is that we're creating too much waste, whether it's waste from litter or waste such as greenhouse gases from living an affluent lifestyle. And that is a concern, that is a problem, and we do need to solve that. If there were many, many more people living the same way as the richest and wealthiest of us today, then we would quickly plummet the planet into an accelerated global warming. But there are many solutions at hand to these, and with the kind of improved politics, which I believe is a necessity in any case, then we'll use the brain powers of all these people to find better solutions to our energy usage, better solutions to our food through things like synthetic biology, things like vertical farming, and then we will embrace the possibilities of technology to live in what I consider to be a humanity plus future. It's not just the same as today, but with more people. It's a higher quality of living, better than well, in which we can escape not just from the limitations of aging and death, but we can escape from many of the limitations of the weakness and shallowness of some aspects of our human nature.